My name is Lena Marshall, and I'm 27. For most of my life, reliable was the word people stapled to me like a name tag. I graduated with an engineering degree, landed a sturdy job at a tech firm, and by 25, I signed papers on a modest 3-bedroom in the quiet part of town, thin sidewalks, maple trees that blush red in October, and a mortgage I could recite like a prayer. The house wasn't a status symbol, it was oxygen, proof that reliable could become independent. My younger brother Ethan is 25 and allergic to trajectories. He bounced from retail to delivery to consulting, which was how he described being between jobs. My parents, Justin and Caitlin, called it finding himself. They would sigh about the economy and the creative paths young people take, and then, in the same breath, ask why I hadn't aimed for something a little bigger when I bought my house. That contradiction sums up my family dynamic. My choices were always a touch too small. Ethan's were always a touch too brave. 3 months ago, my company swallowed a restructuring memo and coughed out 500 layoffs. I was one of them. The severance wasn't terrible. 3 months plus vacation. Between that, unemployment, and the savings I hoarded specifically for storms like this, I had a runway of about 8 months. I opened 1,000 tabs, updated my portfolio, revived old contacts. I was stressed, not desperate. I'll be okay, I told my boyfriend Mark, steadfast as a Sunday, the kind of man who doesn't make promises he won't fight to keep. He offered to help with groceries. I refused. I have a cushion, I said. He nodded, but his eyes measured the distance between my pride and my reality. 2 weeks after the layoff, my parents invited me to Sunday dinner. Normal, on paper. We do family dinners most months. Just us, Mom said, syrupy. The weather had turned from gray to forgiving. I brought a salad and a bottle of $12 optimism. When I walked in, I saw Uncle Robert at the table. He's a lawyer with the kind of grin that hides as much as it shows. Just us, I repeated, setting the bottle down. Surprise, Mom said brightly. Your uncle happened to be free. The meal started with small talk. Jobs, weather, whether the neighborhood bakery had changed owners. Midway through the meatloaf, the air shifted. Dad cleared his throat. Mom reached for my hand across the table. She held it too tightly. Sweetheart, she began, this market is brutal. We're worried about you. I have a plan, I said calmly, walking them through the budget and timeline. Severance, benefits, savings, job search. I'm okay. Dad shook his head like I'd just described a fairy tale. That's not enough anymore. You need family support. Real support. He looked to Uncle Robert, whose hand appeared with a folder like a magician revealing a dove. I drafted something, Uncle Robert said. An emergency structure that gives you breathing room without draining your savings. Very standard. I felt the tiniest drip of dread at the back of my neck. What kind of structure? An investment framework, he said. You add Ethan as a 30% owner of your house. In return, your parents give you $15,000 immediately, extend your runway, reduce stress. Lena, you'd still be primary resident. All major decisions require both signatures, so you remain protected. He spoke like he was reading the instructions off a bandage. I looked at Mom. Her eyes were already shining. Honey, I can't sleep, she whispered. I imagine you losing the house and coming home with boxes and that sweet couch you loved, and I can't bear it. Why would I lose the house? I asked. I've planned for this. I'm set for months. Dad leaned forward. Because markets are unpredictable. You plan for storms. Sometimes it's a hurricane. He squeezed my shoulder. Fatherly, which is to say strategic. This helps both our kids. Ethan gets an asset to build credit. You get support. I should have seen the scaffolding, the timing, the presence of a lawyer, the emotional bomb primed under the table. I heard my therapist's voice, the one I hadn't met yet, notice the pattern, ask for time. I'll think about it, I said, standing. The room contracted. Uncle Robert coughed a no-pressure cough and slid the folder closer. The documents are ready today. I drove an hour. We can notarize in-house. It's very protective. For who? I asked. For the family, Dad said. 3 words that should come with warning labels. They handed me the pages. Tight legal language. My eyes snagged on phrases like residence rights, improvements, market value. So if I want her, I corrected myself, him, if I want Ethan out once I'm working again, I can buy him out? Of course, Dad said quickly. Temporary. Just a bit of stability. I thought about Mark, how he'd offered to spot me groceries without making me feel like a ledger. I thought about telling him this plan. He would have asked the question I didn't want to ask. Why does stability for Ethan require slicing your house? Where is Ethan? I asked. In his room, Mom said too fast. He's excited to finally contribute to something meaningful. The words finally contribute ghosted over my skin. I set the papers down and looked at Uncle Robert. I want independent counsel. He tilted his head. You can, of course, but this is standard, Lena, protective. And time is the one thing we don't have, right? The smile didn't reach his eyes. They rarely did. I should have stood up, taken the folder home, texted Jennifer from the firm a former coworker recommended, and let the drizzle of dread become the downpour that saved me. Instead, I watched my mother wipe invisible tears, assure me that I was her rock, and then ask me to be soft just this once. I watched my father set a pen in front of me, like a test I couldn't afford to fail. Family is a language. Mine speaks fluently in obligation. We'll transfer the funds by Tuesday, Dad said, gentle. You won't have to touch your emergency savings. And I remain primary resident? I asked. Decision-making is equal, but living arrangements are mine? Exactly, Uncle Robert said. The word sounded like it had barbs. The pen felt heavier than it should. I signed. We signed. He notarized between dessert and decaf, like we were finalizing nothing more consequential than a warranty. The $15,000 hit my account 2 days later. I stared at the number. Relief and nausea are cousins. Ethan texted, Thanks, sis. This means a lot. Don't worry. Nothing changes. For 3 weeks, nothing did. I interviewed, worked out, set quiet alarms to practice answers out loud. Mark came over with ramen and the promise that we'll figure it out. I told him about the structure. He went still the way people go still when something inside them is shouting. Do you want me to look at the papers? He asked. It's handled, I said. I'm fine. There's a particular kind of silence that follows lies we tell ourselves. It's patient. It waits. And then, usually over something small, like a text or a coffee left cold, it lifts its finger and taps the glass. The tap came at Sunday dinner, 3 weeks later. Mom's voice was brighter, Dad's plate fuller, and Uncle Robert was notably absent. Ethan was there this time, grinning like he'd joined a club. We're proud of you, sweetheart, Mom said, ladling gravy. It's good to accept help. It's what family does. Family doesn't put conditions on help, I said lightly. No one laughed. So, Ethan began, I gave notice at my apartment. Figured it made sense, since I'm an owner now. He stabbed a green bean. I'll take the basement. Keep out of your hair. The fork paused midair in my hand. You what? Mom placed her hand over mine, careful, soothing. He just assumed you'd be fine. You have extra bedrooms, and it's important for him to start building roots. My blood went cold in a strangely quiet way, like a lake freezing from the edges. The documents, do they say he can move in? Dad's eyes didn't meet mine. Residence rights are part of equity, honey. Standard. My mind scraped backward across bolded phrases and tidy bullet points. Residence rights. Improvements under $10,000 require one signature. Buyout at current market value. It wasn't a structure. It was scaffolding around a house they planned to renovate while I was still living in it. Why didn't you say this was the plan? I asked, keeping my voice even. Dad set his fork down with that patient, disappointed look I've known since childhood. Because you panic when things change. I don't panic, I said. I plan. Same thing, different fonts, he sighed. Ethan tapped his phone and flashed a screen at me. Our signed document. Crisp and officious. It's all there. We're in this together, Lena. Together, I repeated, and it sounded like a trapdoor. That night, after I drove home and locked the door to the house that still smelled like my vanilla candles, I sat at the kitchen island and opened my laptop. I typed a name I'd heard from a former colleague, Jennifer Alvarez, real estate attorney. I composed the email with the kind of politeness you use when you're asking someone to confirm a nightmare. Hi, Jennifer. I was referred by a friend. I need an independent review of some recent ownership documents. I think my family made a mistake. I hope it's a mistake. I hovered over send. The house was silent, but the silence no longer felt like safety. It felt like a held breath. I clicked send. Jennifer's office was small but immaculate. Rows of thick legal volumes, a small plant thriving in filtered light, and the steady hum of a ceiling fan that sounded too calm for what she was about to say. She read through the stack of papers I'd scanned and emailed the night before. Her eyes narrowed as she flipped to the second page. then the third. Then she put her pen down. Did you have independent counsel when you signed this? She asked, voice neutral but sharp. I swallowed. My uncle's a lawyer. He said it was standard. Jennifer looked up. He drafted this? Yes. Her jaw flexed. Then he's either grossly incompetent or deliberately deceptive. That was when my stomach turned. I leaned forward. Deceptive how? She turned the pages back toward me and began pointing out the traps like landmines on a map. 1. Your brother has full residence rights. He can move in any time. You can't legally prevent it or evict him without his consent. I blinked. Even if I own 70%? Ownership percentage doesn't determine residency rights here. The clause is written to give him co-occupancy. I felt the ground shift under my chair. 2. Maintenance and improvements under $10,000 only require one owner's signature. That means Ethan can make changes, a remodel, additions, anything, without asking you first, as long as the cost stays under that amount. 3. The buyout clause. She looked at me carefully. You can buy him out, but not for the same amount your parents gave you. You'd owe him 30% of the current market value, and property prices have already climbed 15% since you bought this house. I tried to breathe. My voice came out thin. So, they basically sold me my own home back at a higher price. 4. If you default on your mortgage, he gets first right to assume the loan and full ownership. Jennifer hesitated before the final blow. 5. There's no clause preventing him from selling his share to a third party. Someone else could own 30% of your home before you even knew it. She closed the folder gently. This isn't protective, it's predatory. And Lena, it's written to benefit Ethan, not you. I stared at the black text like it was a living thing, something coiled and waiting. So I signed myself out of control. Yes. She didn't sugarcoat it. You were ambushed. Emotional manipulation plus family pressure. I've seen this before, but undoing it will be difficult and expensive, especially since your uncle notarized it. Her tone softened. Do you have emails or texts from them? Anything showing they pressured you? I nodded slowly. I'm keeping everything. Good, she said. You'll need them. That night, I drove straight to my parents' house. I didn't call first. The porch light was on. Same yellow glow that had greeted me every Christmas Eve. Except tonight, it felt sterile. Mom opened the door, smile already plastered on. Sweetheart, dinner's just... Don't. My voice cracked the air like glass. We're going to talk about what you made me sign. Dad appeared behind her. His expression flickered between confusion and guilt before settling on annoyance. What are you talking about? Jennifer Alvarez, I said. She's a real estate attorney. She reviewed the contract. She called it predatory. Mom blinked. Oh, Lena, that's such an ugly word. It was just a family arrangement. No, I cut in. It was theft wrapped in paperwork. Dad crossed his arms. Watch your tone. We were trying to help you. Help me? I laughed once, a small, sharp sound. You used my job loss as leverage. You waited until I was scared, then handed me a pen. Mom's eyes shimmered. You're exaggerating. Then why does Ethan have the right to move into my house? Why can he make changes without asking? Why can he sell his share to anyone he wants? Dad's silence was answer enough. You always say family helps family, I whispered. So why did you help him by hurting me? Mom turned away, her hands twisting the hem of her blouse. You're being dramatic, honey. You still have 70%. It's not like we took your home. That's exactly what you did. Finally, Dad exhaled, tired. Look, Lena, we saw an opportunity to help both of you. Ethan's been struggling. We thought this would give him stability while you'd get financial breathing room. So you used me to fix your Ethan problem, I said quietly, because you've already mortgaged your house for his disasters, haven't you? The silence that followed was heavy and telling. When Dad didn't answer, Mom spoke instead. He's had bad luck, that's all. But you've always landed on your feet. Right, I said, which makes me your safety net. Don't talk like that, Mom snapped. We love you both equally. Then why do I keep paying for equality? Dad's voice rose, defensive. We've done everything for you. We raised you, educated you, supported you. Family is supposed to share. Share, yes, I said, not surrender. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking behind me. Finally, I asked the question I'd been dreading. Has Ethan already made plans to move in? Mom's lips trembled. He's been looking at furniture, she admitted softly. He thought you knew. My heart sank. When? He gave notice at his apartment last week, Dad muttered. He'll take the basement. Without even asking me? Mom's voice was a whisper. He assumed you'd be fine with it. I stepped back, cold spreading through me like ink in water. Of course he did. He's always assumed that. I left without another word. 2 days later, I got the text. Ethan. Hey, sis, moving some stuff in this weekend. I'll take the basement bedroom so I'm out of your way. Oh, and Ashley might stay over sometimes. Thanks again for helping me build my future. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. Mark found me at my kitchen table an hour later, still frozen with the phone in my hand. He's moving in, I whispered. Mark read the text and went still. This is war, Lena. You need to lawyer up now. I nodded, barely breathing. Jennifer said the same thing, but the contract's legal. Undoing it would cost more than the house itself. Then document everything, he said. Every message, every word. Start building your record. The thought of fighting my family in court made me want to crawl out of my own skin. But the alternative, living under the same roof as Ethan and Ashley, was worse. Still, when I looked out the kitchen window at the maple trees I'd planted 2 summers ago, I knew what was coming. A storm. And this time it wouldn't just shake the house. It would test the foundation of everything I thought family meant. Ethan moved in on a Thursday afternoon. I came home from a networking event to find his beat-up Honda parked crooked in my driveway, the trunk open and spilling his entire life into mine. Boxes labeled collectibles, a bike with flat tires, and a queen-size mattress wrapped in duct tape. Ashley followed behind him in a floral sundress, carrying a blender like it was a newborn. Hey, Lena, she chirped. Hope it's okay if I unpack a few things upstairs. Upstairs. I forced a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. Ethan said you'd be staying in the basement. Oh, yeah, she said lightly. But we'll need some cabinet space, and the lighting's better up here for cooking videos. I stared at her, then at the blender, then back at her. Cooking videos? Ashley beamed. Yeah, we're thinking of starting a channel. Eats with Ethan. Isn't that fun? I could almost hear the universe laughing. That night, when I finally got them settled downstairs, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, trying to remember how breathing worked. Mark called. How bad is it? He asked. Imagine living with a pair of raccoons who think they're entrepreneurs. He chuckled softly, then grew serious. You need boundaries, Lena. Written ones. I signed those away, I said, remember? For 2 weeks I tried to coexist, but coexist implies peace. This was occupation. Ethan started claiming communal ownership of everything. My TV remote, my coffee maker, even my reading chair. It's part of our living space, he'd say, waving his phone with the contract pulled up like a sheriff with a badge. Ashley left half-finished smoothies on every counter and lit candles in the basement that smelled like birthday cake. The house, once my sanctuary, now reeked of artificial vanilla and tension. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning. I woke up to the sound of drills outside. I stumbled to the back door, bleary-eyed, and froze. 2 contractors were digging into my backyard while Ethan supervised, coffee in hand. What are you doing? I shouted over the hum. Morning, sis. We're putting in a fire pit. A what? Fire pit. Great for parties. Adds value to the property. You can't make modifications without my approval? He smirked and tapped his phone again. Improvements under 10 grand only need one owner's consent. This is 8,500. Already paid the deposit. I felt my pulse spike. With what money? He shrugged. Mom and Dad lent it to me. They said it's an investment. I could almost laugh if it didn't burn so much. The same parents who claimed they were financially drained had somehow found another $10,000 for their golden boy's backyard toy. I called Jennifer immediately. He's installing a fire pit. Can I stop him? She sighed. Technically, he's within his rights. The clause allows unilateral improvements under $10,000. You could fight it, but it'd cost more in legal fees than the fire pit itself. When I hung up, I saw Ethan watching me from the patio, smirking. Don't stress, Lena, he said. This'll make the house worth more. You'll thank me later. The next few weeks blurred into exhaustion. The house became a revolving door of Ethan's friends. Late-night laughter, thudding bass, cigarette smoke creeping up the vents. Ashley's perfume clung to the walls. I started spending more time at Mark's apartment just to think clearly. When I came home, I'd find dirty dishes piled high, sticky counters, and my once perfect beige rug stained with beer. One night, after cleaning for hours, I found an envelope on the kitchen counter. A bill, $120 for groceries. Ethan had written across the top in black marker. Split 70-30. Your share, $84 thanks. I laughed out loud. The sound scared even me. That same night, Mark sat beside me on the couch as I told him everything. Every manipulation, every clause, every fight. He took my hand and said, You have to decide if this is worth fighting for or walking away from. It's my home, I said. I worked for it. I know, he said quietly, but right now, it's destroying you. Then came the text that broke something inside me. Ethan, since you're working again, we need to talk about rent. I stared at my phone. Rent. When I asked in person, he didn't hesitate. I own 30% of this place, Lena. You're using the majority. The master bedroom, office, kitchen. It's fair you pay me rent for my share. I laughed in disbelief. You live here, Ethan. You're not my landlord. Legally, I could make a case, he said smugly. You make more now. You should contribute fairly. Jennifer called his argument absurd but dangerous. The contract didn't specify living arrangements, which meant if he pushed, it could become a legal gray area. Every night after that, I slept less. I started locking my bedroom door. The house creaked differently, like it was rejecting me, too. One evening, I came home early from work and heard Ashley on speakerphone in the kitchen. She was laughing. Yeah, she said to whoever was on the other end. Once Lena realizes she can't afford the mortgage and buyout, Ethan's parents will help us assume the loan. We'll basically have a house for 30% of its value. Just a few more months. The words sliced clean through me. I froze in the hallway, heart hammering. When she hung up, I stepped into the kitchen. What did you just say? Ashley's eyes widened. Oh, Lena, I didn't see you. Say it again. Ethan came downstairs, sensing trouble. What's going on? I turned to him. Is that the plan? Stress me into defaulting so you can take my house? He didn't deny it. He just sighed. It's not personal, Lena. You bought when the market was down. You got lucky. I'm just evening the field. Evening the field? I repeated. I worked for this. You were born second, not wronged. He smirked. Call it balance. Balance. The word tasted like rot. That night, I sent Jennifer everything. Screenshots, timestamps, transcriptions of what I'd overheard. She told me to start a digital record. I did. Texts, photos, audio. Every interaction. I wasn't just defending my house anymore. I was documenting my betrayal. A week later, I got the call I'd been waiting for. A job offer. Not as high-paying as before, but solid, stable, my chance to rebuild. When I told Ethan, he didn't congratulate me. Instead, he printed out a spreadsheet and slammed it onto the table. Now that you're earning again, we need to review household expenses. I looked at him, incredulous. You mean your expenses? This is a partnership, he said. Partners share costs. Partners don't ambush each other with contracts, I snapped. He shrugged. You could always move out if it's too hard. And that was when I realized that's exactly what he wanted. For the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just looked at him and said, enjoy the house, Ethan. Every inch of it. He grinned, not realizing I'd already made my decision. I was done fighting inside his battlefield. It was time to take the war elsewhere, on my terms. 2 weeks later, I packed 2 suitcases, a box of documents, and my laptop. That was it. The rest of the house, my furniture, my dishes, the art I'd saved up for, could stay. I wasn't abandoning them. I was freeing myself from them. When I told Mark my plan, he didn't try to talk me out of it. He just nodded slowly. You're sure? I can't breathe in there, I said. Every time I walk through that door, I feel like I'm trespassing in my own life. He helped me move into a studio apartment closer to my new job. Cramped, no balcony, barely enough room for a small table, but it was mine. No one else's signature was on the lease, and that alone made it feel palatial. The first night there, I sat cross-legged on the floor, eating takeout straight from the box. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. When Ethan realized I'd actually left, he exploded. You can't just go, he shouted over the phone. Who's going to handle the bills, the maintenance, the utilities? The person living there, I said evenly. You're abandoning your responsibilities. No, Ethan, I replied. I'm meeting them. I'm still paying the mortgage, but your mess, that's on you. He hung up on me. Within an hour, Mom called. Honey, what is this nonsense about you moving out? You're just giving up your home. I'm not giving it up, I said. I'm protecting what's left of me. Lena, she sighed, the tone that used to guilt me into apologizing for things I hadn't done. You're being selfish. Family doesn't walk away. Then why did family steal my peace? You're twisting everything, she snapped. Your brother is struggling. You have more stability. Can't you show a little compassion? I almost laughed. Mom, compassion doesn't mean setting myself on fire so he can stay warm. Jennifer was blunt when I updated her. Walking away doesn't void your rights, she said. As long as you keep paying the mortgage, you're still fulfilling your obligations. And if he lets the property fall apart, you'll have leverage. She outlined the plan. Document everything. Damage, texts, missed payments, neglect. Keep paying the mortgage to protect my credit. Initiate a partition sale once I'd built enough evidence. Think of it as your nuclear option, she said. It takes time and money, but it forces a sale and divides the proceeds by ownership percentage. So I can force him to sell? Yes, even if he doesn't want to. It wasn't ideal, but it was something. A weapon in a war I hadn't chosen. A month passed. I worked, rebuilt my savings, and started therapy through my company's insurance. My therapist, Marianne, asked one question that stuck in my head. If your family didn't share your last name, would you still let them treat you this way? The answer hit like a punch. No. Then maybe it's time to start living that truth, she said. Back at the house, the predictable unraveling began. Ethan called twice a week complaining. The dishwasher's broken. The electricity bill's higher. The lawn needs mowing. I reminded him he now had residence rights and decision-making authority under $10,000. He didn't find that funny. Then Mom started calling too. Ethan's been so stressed, honey. He says the bills are piling up since you left. I'm not the landlord, I replied. You're our daughter, she insisted. I said quietly, until you sold me for $15,000. Then came the shock I didn't expect. Ashley left. She lasted a month without me there to play mediator. According to Ethan's own text messages, half rant, half self-pity, she packed her bags after he spent her savings on business ideas and refused to get a job. She said I'm just like my parents, he texted one night. Entitled, can you believe that? I could. When he called me drunk a week later, he slurred, You ruined everything. Ashley left because you abandoned the house. No, I said calmly. Ashley left because she finally saw who you are without me cleaning up your chaos. He threatened to trash the place. I reminded him that I'd installed security cameras before I left and had comprehensive insurance. Any intentional damage, I said, is criminal vandalism, even for a co-owner. He hung up without another word. A few days later, my dad called. His voice was tired, older somehow. Your mother's upset, he said. Ethan's been struggling since you left. I'm sure, I replied flatly. We've been thinking, he continued. If we buy out Ethan's share and transfer full ownership back to you, would you consider moving back in and forgetting all this ever happened? I actually laughed. Not bitterly, just honestly. You want me to pretend none of this happened? That you didn't orchestrate an ambush? That you didn't sign away my autonomy like it was some family investment plan? He sighed. We made a mistake. No, Dad, I said quietly. You made a choice. There was a long silence. Then, so you're really done with us? Yes, I said. But I wish it hadn't come to this. He didn't respond, just a soft click. That evening, I walked into my little studio and exhaled. No fire pit, no shouting, just quiet. For the first time, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like healing. I was still paying a mortgage on a house I didn't live in, but I wasn't paying with my soul anymore. And that was worth every penny. It's been 3 months since I moved out. 3 months since I last set foot inside that house I once called home. From my tiny studio window, I can see the skyline at night, small glimmers of light blinking like quiet promises that life moves on no matter how bruised you feel. And somehow it has. My job's going well. My coworkers know nothing about the mess I left behind, and that's exactly how I like it. They just see a quiet, competent engineer who shows up on time and brings her own coffee. No one knows that every paycheck I earn goes toward both rent and a mortgage I no longer live under. But I don't care anymore. I finally understand what Jennifer meant when she said, sometimes peace is the most expensive property you'll ever buy. Ethan's unraveling was predictable. Without me there to pay utilities or handle upkeep, the house started falling apart. The grass turned to straw. The sink backed up. He missed a couple of water payments and panicked when the utility company sent notices. He called Mom daily, asking for help. Then he called me. You need to come back, he said, voice frayed. This isn't fair. You just left me with everything. Everything you wanted, I replied calmly. You can't just walk away from family. I didn't walk away from family, I said. I walked away from users. He swore at me, slammed the phone down, and went radio silent. A week later, Mom texted me. Ethan's really struggling. Maybe you could come by and talk to him? I didn't reply. For the first time, silence was my boundary. Not a weapon, but a wall. 2 weeks later, Karma arrived with a headline. Uncle Robert disbarred. Jennifer sent me the link herself. Looks like the state bar caught up with him, she wrote. Turns out I wasn't his only victim. My cousin Sarah reached out after reading about it online. Robert had drafted family-friendly contracts for half our relatives, all skewed to enrich himself or one favored party. Business partnerships, inheritance disputes, property shares. He'd been manipulating us all for years. My documentation, Every signed page, every time-stamped email, every screenshot of his pressure tactics was now evidence in a broader investigation. For the first time, I felt like the universe had stopped looking the other way. Mom called me crying, truly crying this time. "We didn't know, Lena," she sobbed. "We trusted him. He told us it was all standard." I let her cry. Then I said, "That's the same thing I told myself when you asked me to sign those papers." Her breathing hitched. "What are we going to do?" "I don't know," I said softly, "but I do know I'm done being the solution to everyone else's mess." Weeks later, Jennifer called again. "Good news," she said. "Good news," she said. "The contract could be voided if it's proven part of a fraudulent pattern. You might regain full ownership." My chest tightened. "Do you think it'll happen?" "Maybe," she said, "but don't count on it. Build your life assuming you'll never see that house again." I smiled faintly. I already have. By then, the family's golden image had started to crack. Word got around in our small town about the investment, about Ethan's tantrums, about Uncle Robert's schemes. Ethan posted online looking for a roommate. The comments section was brutal. "Didn't your sister already pay for that place? Maybe your parents' basement is available." Even Ashley joined in, replying, "If you can't take care of your own life, maybe stop stealing other people's." The irony was almost poetic. Then one evening, Dad called again. "We're fixing this," he said, his voice lower, older. "We'll buy Ethan's share back and transfer everything to you." "Why now?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "Because we finally understand what we did. We were wrong." I waited for the usual strings, the conditions, the guilt, but this time there were none. Just a weary man trying to patch what couldn't be unbroken. "I appreciate that," I said, "but I don't want the house anymore. Let Ethan keep it. Let the walls remind him of what he built on lies." Dad sighed. "You really won't come back?" "No," I said gently, "because I've already gone forward." The next day, Mark and I sat on the floor of my studio, eating pizza from a box, like we did when this nightmare began. He smiled at me between bites. "You know, you're different now." "How so?" "You used to bend so much to keep everyone comfortable. Now you stand straight, even if it makes people uncomfortable." I thought about that. Maybe standing straight is what comfort finally feels like. He laughed quietly. "So what's next?" "I don't know," I said, "but whatever it is, it's mine." Therapy helped me understand something that changed everything. I wasn't quitting my family. I was quitting the role they'd written for me. The responsible one, the fixer, the scapegoat who paid the bill for everyone else's mistakes. And once I stepped out of that role, I discovered the one person I'd been betraying all along was myself. Now I keep copies of every document in a neat folder, not because I need revenge, but because I like seeing the proof of how far I've come. Sometimes I drive past the old house on my way to work. The grass is patchy. The curtains are drawn. It doesn't feel like mine anymore. And that's okay. Because peace doesn't always come from winning. Sometimes it comes from walking away and meaning it. If anyone reading this ever finds themselves trapped in a family deal that feels wrong, document everything. Get your own lawyer. Protect your future. And remember, blood may bind us, but it doesn't give anyone ownership of our lives. You can rebuild money. You can rebuild a home, but once you sell your peace, it takes years to buy it back. I paid the price, and I'd pay it again because this time I bought something priceless: freedom.